Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 117 of volume 2 of Rabbi Victor Miller's new translation and commentary of Duties of the Mind. And we are in Shah HaBekina, the gate of examining, the gate of reflection. And we are looking at kinds of signs of wisdom. And we're up to obscure signs of wisdom, which is the third category of the various or the three kinds of signs of wisdom that we've been looking at. I have to think because I'm kind of ahead on my morning audio classes and we are in a completely different gate. We're in the gate of the service of Elohim and yes, so we're kind of powering ahead there, and I've got to just pause every now and then before I sort of launch into my normal introduction. But it's good, we're getting a second swipe at the material, and in many ways the video is probably more valuable than the audio. It's good to be able to actually see the speaker's face. Not that I have a face that will ever launch ships, but nonetheless. So third category, this is part 6 of chapter 3, obscure signs of wisdom. Obscure signs of wisdom. Let me just move over my little book holder here and get everything right. Okay. The third kind of the signs of wisdom consists of signs of wisdom that are apparent in one way, but concealed in another way. People find such phenomena mysterious and difficult to interpret. An ordinary person of limited intelligence will not be able to understand them even if he tries, unless he spends a great deal of time reflecting on them and analyzing them. One subject that comes to mind is the benefit of death. This is an obscure sign of wisdom. I don't know whether this is going to be discussed or if we've already looked at it. We possibly have already looked at it, or it could be one of my morning audios. I remember reading it. But in many ways, death is actually a good thing. But you would rarely, if ever, hear somebody say that. But there are many good things about death. And it takes quite a lot of time and quite a lot of deep thinking to actually realize why death is actually a benefit to mankind in the world. Anyway, let's see what the book is going to say in this particular section. An ordinary person of limited knowledge will not be able to understand them even if he tries, unless he spends a great deal of time reflecting on them and analyzing them. These are phenomena of nature which appear calamitous but are found to be very good for the world. So there you go. So these are phenomena of nature which appear calamitous but are found to be very good for the world. So, death is a part of life. It's a part of nature. It's calamitous. When somebody even loses a pet, it's like really difficult time. But if we search through anything and everything to do with that particular subject, we will find that if it wasn't for death, things would be very, very bad indeed. An example is the phenomenon of forest fires. Okay, so we're going to be looking at forest fires. And what they do, forest fires which destroy all the rotten trees that house parasites. After the forest burns, a new crop of fresh, healthy trees is enabled to grow. Similarly, when there is a volcano, the earth spews out from its interior many minerals that are needed by the soil, and these are spread over the face of the earth for miles around to create fertile conditions. Okay, so in both these cases, death is an aspect of the phenomenon. Another phenomenon is lightning, which people think of as being nothing but trouble. However, those who have investigated this phenomenon know that lightning also causes as an essential fertilizer to be produced. The lightning unites oxygen and nitrogen in the air, resulting in nitrates that mix with rain to fertilize the soil. These examples show that there are very many signs of wisdom that are discovered only by people who study them in depth. So again, lightning, if it strikes a tree, it's going to, kill the tree. So again, this is something that is associated with death, and there's a benefit, and if you look into it deeply, an array of benefits there. Actually, the world is filled with millions of such phenomena, which in our bodies in our bodies and all around us. Such signs include the annual changes that occur in the 4 seasons of the year and the like. So most people, and chances are you're going to be one of them. Chances are I'm one of them too. There's a good chance I am, which is a person just sees seasons for what they get out of them in an immediate benefit. So if it's summer, people go, okay, great, it's summer, I can go for a swim. If it's winter, people go, oh, it's winter, oh, what a drag, I've got to stay indoors, it's cold, and I've got to put on my warm woolies. And it's bitterly cold, and now I have to sort of heat the house and pay for heating and all that sort of thing. But that's really not even taking into account that's a person that's not even gone out of their way at all to appreciate the actual requirement of the 4 seasons. This is a person that's just sort of like looking at things in their immediacy. And so, believe it or not, many people are operating on this level. And so this is something that is sort of very much ingrained or wrapped up in having a lack of gratitude, because you're just like, what do we, why can't it just be sort of summer all year round? Or, or maybe you don't like summer, maybe you prefer the autumn months, or the winter months, but this is all sort of there for a reason. There's not 4 seasons just for you to, kind of have something to whinge about or a topic of small talk to get into a conversation. They actually shouldn't be there to inhabit that type of thing at all, but they are. And these are the things we'll have to face in our judgment if we don't do something about them and do tshuva for them, and to ask Hashem to forgive us for all our accrued complaints of the weather, and it being too hot or too cold or too windy, because these are things that are an attack on Hashem's sovereignty, because we are complaining about the condition of the world. It might be done in a friendly way, it might be done as small talk or to initiate a conversation, but at the end of the day, you're complaining about the Hashem's creation in some way. And so we've got to roll out of that as best we can. The author is referring to the many phenomena of winter, spring, summer, and the fall. For example, in the fall, the leaves turn different colors, serving as a signal to birds that it is time for them to begin their migration to the south. Birds don't have a calendar, but they respond to their instincts. When they see the changing colors of the leaves, they instinctively assemble in large flocks and begin their flight to the south. When the leaves fall off the trees, it's also a great benefit, as all the materials that were expended in making them return to the earth. It is in the summertime that the leaves are needed on the trees, that it is then that they breathe in oxygen and carbon dioxide from the air to make them stronger and healthier. But in the fall, it is a time for the trees to stop growing, and therefore the leaves need to fall off. In this way, we see that every season has its benefits. However, this is something that is not readily apparent and requires a good deal of study. So you all of a sudden go, okay, I don't think, I don't think I could be a very in-depth person. I thought it was kind of, a little bit kind of deep, but no, maybe not quite deep enough. Okay, so there's way more going on here than first meets the eye. So, and this is good, because this is getting me thinking and reevaluating what my service of Hashem is actually like, and I can see that there's lots of room for improvement. Okay, great. So I've got something to work on. I've got something to do. Okay, so now we are looking at part 7, making effective use of knowledge. A wise man who is insightful should choose from the world's knowledge, that knowledge which pertains to its spiritual and intangible aspects. A person should focus on those aspects of knowledge that offer an obvious indication of Hashem's wisdom. An example of such signs may be found in the joints of the human body, whereas a person could turn his neck in almost any direction. The joints of his fingers allow only a limited degree of up and down movement. The freedom of motion of the neck is needed so that the person will be able to see in all directions. In contrast, if he holds a heavy object in his hand, it will fall off fall off his hands if his fingers were able to turn downwards, so his fingers lock in place and effectively provide a stiff shelf to hold up things. So just simply by looking at the anatomy and the limitations of movement and where things are allowed to move and not move, it enables us to do a combination of different things to be mobile and also be safe as we navigate these bodies in the environment that we find ourselves in. Every part of the body has different functions. While we clearly need to study them, it is more important of an obligation to study things that are less obvious because they conceal great secrets of Hashem's wisdom. The more difficult something is to do, the greater is the reward. As the Mishnah says, quoting Avot 5:23, chapter 5:23, the reward is in proportion to the exertion. The more difficult it is to discover the secrets, the greater is the reward. Thus, there is more of an obligation to study the obvious things, but the reward is less. The reward for understanding the less obvious things is greater because the insight is more difficult to acquire. He should use this knowledge like a ladder to climb higher, demonstrating proofs of the existence of the Creator. Some people misunderstand this, arguing that we already believe in Hashem by tradition and therefore we don't need proofs. And this is something that I've heard a few times where people sort of say, well, I don't eat pork because Hashem has commanded Israel not to eat pork, right? And you go, well, I'm going to look into why. Now, there's nothing wrong with looking into why, but if you're going to allow the why to be a factor in your motivation, then you're robbing yourself of the obedience of refraining from eating pork. If you're, a member of the nation of Israel, whether you're an Orthodox Jew or a Noahide, somebody who's grafted themselves into the Commonwealth of Israel in your capacity, right? Then you're robbing yourself of your Avodah Hashem by saying, well, I just eat pork because I think it's the right thing to do. So you're diminishing the range of your love and your servitude of Hashem by disengaging it and uncoupling it from your obedience and what Hashem says to do and not to do. Yeah, sure, you can find out whether something is good to do or not to do, but if that's going to affect you in any way in abiding by that particular, walking that line, then that's going to diminish your duties of the mind, because you're partly going to be motivated because, I know not to do that because if I do that, it's bad for me. Now, it's good to know that. It's good to, sometimes it's obvious that it's going to be bad for you if you do it, but other things aren't so obvious, right? But ultimately, Hashem has said to do it, and what you've been doing has been tried and true. So far, it's been working out. Why should I break that and then, go and do something different when so far it seems to be working out? Yeah, I can find people say, well, why do you do that? Do you just follow him blindly? And the answer is no, you don't follow him blindly, because you can find out. But if you do find out, don't allow the what is in the natural to influence why you're doing it. Rather, do it because you want to do a mitzvah for Hashem. You want to perform a commandment of Hashem. And it's good to know. And you can tell people why too. But if people ultimately ask you, why don't you do this or do that? You say, because Hashem in His Torah has commanded us not to. And if you're a Noahide, you're doing it out of respect for the nation of Israel. So your service is rather than it being a command for you, anything outside the 7 Noahide laws, you can observe something out of respect for the nation of Israel. So you can even wear tefillin, you can even put mezuzah up, though some people will argue against that and say that's not true, you can't do that. But at the end of the day, we have stories in the Mishnah of, one particular story of a rabbi gifting a mezuzah to a king, a foreign king. So, I don't know, that story exists. If you've got a problem with Noahides having a mezuzah up in their home, what do you do about that famous story in the Mishnah where a king receives a mezuzah? You've got to think it through. The more difficult it is to discover the secrets, the greater is the reward. Thus, there is more of an obligation to study the obvious things, but the reward is less. The reward for understanding the less obvious things is greater because the insight is more difficult to acquire. So, if there's something that you investigate that Hashem has commanded you to do, and you find that there's like so many things that are going to go your way if you obedient to him in that area. That is a really good thing, because you are finding out the wisdom of Hashem on your own. But if you're doing it to motivate yourself to do it because you don't want to do what he tells you to do, but if you find that in the natural, if you do what he's told you to do, it's going to benefit you physiologically, then that's going to diminish your avodat Hashem, your service of Hashem. Some people misunderstand this, arguing that we already believe in Hashem by tradition, therefore we don't need proofs. Okay, I just read that. But the author disagrees and says that tradition we have of Hashem should be forfeited as much as possible. It's a mitzvah to increase the intensity and degree of Yirat Hashem. So it's a mitzvah to do whatever you can to intensify your fear of Hashem, because the more fear of Hashem you have, the less lightheaded you are, and the less chance you are of getting yourself into trouble with unbridled conversations with various people, and being in situations where you could be compromised. So you're more conscious of Hashem's regality, like being attached to royalty, and you've never seen the Queen or the Queen Mother in a bikini on a beach, and so because they're royalty, they're behind the protective walls of the palace, and they you never see them sort of spit on the ground. And so that's it, you're part of royalty. So act like royalty. You can't sort of say, well, I'm royalty, but I'll act this way. No, you've seen where that's got the sons, Prince Charles and Diana's sons, when they've, got caught up in going to fancy dress parties and, dressing as Nazi soldiers, and, getting found out doing drugs and things like that. And, one of them writes a telltale, book, and then gets disowned, and wonders why he's got disowned, and it gets him into a whole mess of trouble. And you can just see in the natural that you've by following the rules of royalty. Okay, you're following the rules. Now, I'm not saying that you're following the rules and covering things up like people did with Prince Andrew, but there's a way that a person holds himself and walks out his beliefs if he is royalty. And so if you are professing that you are wanting to draw close to Hashem, then you are professing that you want to be a part of that royal family. Okay? It's a mitzvah to increase the intensity and degree of Yirat Hashem. For instance, when Hashem gave the Torah at Har Sinai, people might have said to each other, let's go hear Hashem giving us the Torah. Imagine if it was one Jew who said, I have perfect faith. You go and tell me what you heard. I will believe your report. Such a person would be deemed unworthy because he didn't want to come and hear Hashem speaking directly. And so, this is, you get an opportunity to see your favorite, lead singer in your favorite band coming near you from another part of the world, and you're not going to go and see him. If he's come to your country and all you have to do is buy a ticket, it's not like you have to go overseas and, book a plane trip and a hotel and accommodation. And so, oh no, it's okay. I'll just watch a video of one of his songs. You'd be there in a flash. And so too, if the object of your affection, is going to make an appearance, then you want to go and see that lecturer. You want to go and see that rabbi rather than just watching videos. You've got an opportunity of seeing him in real life, and you can actually ask him questions after the lecture. The point is that everybody should continually acquire more and more chizuk, more and more strength in imunah by increasing his imunah kushit, that is his imunah based on what he perceives with his physical senses. A person who relies on his tradition and doesn't want to reinforce it with ideas that can be gained from looking at the world and seeing the signs of Hashem's wisdom is losing the opportunity to gain a more intense imunah and more intense faith. That is why the author says the knowledge of the world is a ladder that a person can use to climb higher and higher in feeling the presence of Hashem. A person will cling to his service of Hashem in proportion to how much he feels the greatness and supremacy of Hashem in his heart. And you're only going to be one of these people that will cling to Hashem if you're constantly bombarding yourself with information about Hashem in the Torah and insights in the Torah. And you're constantly peppering yourself with learning. And when you're not learning, you're yearning to go and learn again. And this will take you out a lot of painful situations that arise that affect normal people in the world, because normal people in the world kind of just look to pursue their desires, and when their pursuit of their desires is in some way hits a rocky road, then they just can't seem to get any traction or think clearly. And so their well-being is predicated on their circumstances. Whereas a person who is attached to Hashem, their well-being is basically rests on their pursuit of drawing close to Hashem and what his mind is on any given situation. And so, this is, and then you look at these people that actually achieve this to some degree, Orthodox Jews in yeshiva, in a good yeshiva in Israel. I'm not talking any yeshiva, but I'm talking the really good ones, the really strict ones, sometimes the most expensive ones. And you see these people, they have very little material means, and they live very humble existences and live in very humble places. And you see the enthusiasm and the animation in the yeshiva halls. You can go online and see them, and you can see these people are actually the happiest people on the face of the earth, and they're engaged in these very animated discussions and learning, and it's very organic, and it's almost like they're in paradise. They're in an orchard now, and so anything and they don't know really, they don't care about the internet, they don't care about politics, they don't care about all these other things. They are just want to pursue the object of their affection, that is knowledge of Hashem. And so Hashem in turn blesses them greatly, and they tend to get out of a lot of things that plague a normal person throughout his life. They're just not affected by these things. And they're beautiful people, they're happy people, they're humble people, they're softly spoken people, they're enthusiastic people, they're interesting people, and they're smart people, and they're reliable people, and they're trustworthy people. And they're the pinnacle of a human being. Somebody who wants to actually go with the manufacturer actual outlines and the manufacturer's manual, as it were, then you're going to get the best out of that. That's going to be the best of the best, because that's going back to the original manufacturer's vision and the way you should actually run. The way you should use yourself. If I could use that crude analogy. A person will cling to his service of Hashem in proportion to how much he feels the greatness and supremacy of Hashem in his heart. So you're not going to cling to him if you're not learning about him and wanting to learn about him in some capacity every day. Of course, there's going to have to be room for a gradual process for this to happen. You're not going to be expected to learn for more than 20 minutes. But down the track in a few years' time, you'll be learning for hours on end. And you won't even feel those hours pass by. To the degree that a person increases his sense and the greatness of Hashem, is wisdom, power, and kindness, the person will become a greater Oved, a greater servant of Hashem. When the person has only a faint idea of Hashem's kindness, his service to Hashem is only driven by a sense of duty. In effect, he feels he is doing a favor to Hashem. He thinks, look what I'm doing for you. But when he realizes the magnitude of Hashem's kindness to him, he serves Hashem out of gratitude. That makes all the difference in the world, as the Rambam says, according to Hilkot Yesodei HaTorah, chapter 4, verse 12, a person will love Hashem in proportion to his knowledge of him. The more he knows about Hashem, the more he will love him. So when you get a person that actually doesn't know much about Hashem, but it knows he's true and says to people that he follows him, but he doesn't really invest any effort and time into actually doing that, his Avodat Hashem is very thin and very surface level. And anything that he does feel is, well, whatever I am doing is I'm doing a favor to Hashem, and this is actually he's getting something out of this, and that's the focus. When in actual fact, he gets nothing out of this. He doesn't need your service. You need him, and you have no clue and no awareness that he's doing you a favor, and you should in turn show a service of gratitude. This is all totally bereft of you. This is beyond you. You don't see it. Okay, the person's not a wicked person in the sense that they hate Hashem or they don't believe Hashem. They're not an atheist. But they are what most people are familiar with the term lukewarm. And so this is a person in deep, deep danger. Because they're in deep danger because they've got no chance of being awakened, because they already believe that they're on the right team, and they are, but they're not functioning correctly on the right team. So a person who's supremely wicked, On the other hand, they have every chance to all of a sudden be woken up out of their delusion and all of a sudden see the truth and then embrace it, which you see happens quite regularly. But somebody who's already embraced the truth, the right path, but they're walking it out poorly, there's never much of a chance that they're ever going to wake up to themselves and realize that they're doing it wrong. And this is what Hasatan does. This is a frequent attack of Hasatan and the Sitra Akra, the dark forces. They get a lot of people this way, and they go, well, I'm on the right team. I know the right stuff. Yeah, but you're not operating in it yet. Okay, you're not a wicked person that is warring against the truth, and you're not an atheist who's completely trying to divorce himself of the reality of everything. Yes, you're somebody that's on the right team, but you're still in big trouble, and you could argue you're in the greatest trouble because you're in no way doing anything to actually walk this out properly. And these are what these videos are designed to do: is a bucket of cold water, a slap in the face, as it were, metaphorically speaking, for you to go, oh man, okay, so I've got to be learning every day, and these books I've got to learn, I've got to get across these books, I've got to get my head around this, and I've got to do this, and then all of a sudden, all these mundane things that are pressing on you, they will go away. Not saying that the bills will stop, and the pressures from job or family members will stop, but they won't become an issue for you anymore. You're not concerned about them. Yes, you'll want to try and remedy them and fix them if you can, but your concern is learning about Hashem's Torah and learning about the wisdom of Hashem. And so everything is predicated on that. You're not looking to pursue your pleasures as much, at least initially, and you start to go, actually, I'm really enjoying this. I think I want to do some more of this, and it'll continue to grow and grow and grow until you have the sweetness of the Torah will grow in your mouth. This is an important principle which bears repeating. The more a person sees Hashem's kindness, the more that person becomes an Oved Hashem. I think I missed a bit. A person's devotion to Hashem will be in proportion to the recognition of the signs of Hashem's goodness and compassion to all of His creatures, especially the abundance of benefits that Hashem bestowed upon him personally. Okay, so yeah, I did miss a bit. So the fact you can stand upright, you don't smell, you've got good hygiene, you've had a shower, you have a razor, you can groom yourself, you can have a haircut, you have eyes that work, you have ears that work, you have teeth, you have a tongue, all these types of things. You have a place to live. So straight out of the gates, there's so much to thank Hashem for, and I mean a kosher razor when I say razor too, boys and girls. This is an important principle which bears repeating. The more a person sees of Hashem's kindness, the more a person becomes an Oved Hashem, a servant of Hashem. Or as the Rambam says, the more he loves Hashem, he studies each good thing that Hashem does for the world and for him personally, and then he weighs their combined effect. The multitude of benefits arouses in his heart an intense emotion of love to Hashem. The person is also moved by his recognition that Hashem elevated him above all other creatures without expecting him to have done any deeds previously to deserve it. Every person is born in the form of a human being, and that is in itself a tremendous elevation. Every person, despite the fact that some people are born without arms or legs or whatever, if you have no arms or legs and you have perfect eyesight and perfect hearing, okay, there's people that have all their limbs and they have neither of those. So at the end of the day, what anybody gets, whether they miss out on something, but they get the basics, straight out of the gates, that's gratitude galore, just even before you even hit the ground. This strikes us as a strange idea, which only a scholar like the author of Kavod HaLevavot would think of. It means that all the materials that comprise a person's body could have resulted in a different creature, such as a sheep or a wolf. Hashem took these materials and presented him in the form of a human body with all the perfections of its glorious faculties and capabilities. What did he do to deserve such a great gift? Look at the physique of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. This is a guy that was sort of the cookie cutter sort of design of a human being in his prime. And, what gratitude would you have for Hashem for having a body, so uniquely defined and as large, and you go, well, he put a lot of his own effort and work in that, and it's Hashem enabled him to put in that work and the effort and be able to upkeep a body with its daily requirements of having that physique. And so there's enormous gratitude that a person has, if they've been gifted with a body that, that is extremely fit and healthy. It's not until you lose that and you hit your old age like he is now, and he's like, wow, okay. He looks back at the glory days and flicks through magazines, and it's gone, it's finished. What now? What are you going to do now that you should be at a stage where there are so many more powerful things that are compelling to you than what is back there. And that's why, nostalgia, it doesn't really have a valid, a significant role to play, because you'll find that people that are invested in nostalgia, if I can say it properly, these are people that don't have much going on in the present, because they're suckers for nostalgia. They're going, okay, let's go back to a time when things were cool. Okay, so you're just giving away the fact that, things aren't cool. I'm always on medication now. I can't get up. Yeah, but learning Torah, it's not based on your physical prowess. In fact, the older you get, the more wise you become, But because you're invested in material, it's all deteriorating, and now there's not much for you to keep you interested in the world. So nothing. So what do we do to deserve such a great gift? Nothing. He is therefore grateful, eternally grateful to Hashem for giving him such a tremendous unearned gift, the ability to be a human being. So the ability to be a human being in whatever capacity is a tremendous gift. And we should be grateful to Hashem that he made us into a human being and not a wolf or a dog or a cat, or inserted us in as a brick in a wall, or some organic thing. He made you a complex human being. So there's endless gratitude that just comes straight out of the gates for that. Hashem did not expect man to have any special quality with which to begin life, so that because of it he should deserve such a great reward from Hashem as being born a human being. This is a novel idea, and the author says it more than once. We have been created in the form of Zelim Elohim, the image of Elohim, on our face, and sublime idealism in our heart. We are blessed with nobility of aspiration. That is, with great hopes and thoughts about ideas which we aspire to attain. Potentially a person is very great, and all his greatness was given to him, even though he did nothing to deserve it. I think we'll leave it there. So I really like where this is going. I like where we're at the moment. I like where we're at in every video, but this is something that I think gets a lot of people's curiosity, this subject matter. And they just go, okay, yep, you've got me. I definitely have to look into this. And this has to be something that needs to be on my radar in terms of how I serve Hashem. So this takes us to page 121 of volume 2 of Rabbi Victor Miller's new translation and commentary of Duties of the Mind. Go out and get this book. I always put a link below in the little information box. Please click the link and grab yourself a copy of volume 1 or volume 2, or as many volumes as you can pick up. They're up to volume 7 at the moment. There'll be 10 volumes in total once the series is complete. And you don't have to be an Orthodox Jew to learn this work. You can be anybody. You're essentially learning how to be a better human being and to be closer to the person that created you, which is what we're trying to do here. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. The secret word is February, and I didn't just read that off my calendar. Yes, I did. So put it in a comment if you got this far, and then I'll know, and Hashem will know, and you'll know that you've done some hard yards with me today and done some good solid learning. And I hope you have a great day. Until next time, bye for now.